Hello everyone, if you're in my online finance class, this is test 1 review. So when is test 1? Well, test 1 for you will start on March 8th at 7 p.m. and it's going to go to March 9th to 11:30 p.m. So the test doesn't open up till 7 p.m. on March 8th, and then it will stay open all the way to the next day, March 9th at 11:30 p.m. So this gives you more than 24-hour period to take your exam. Now, there is a time limit on the exam. Okay, so the time limit is 3 hours. It means you have 3 hours to complete the exam. So from whatever point you started in the test period, which is March 8th at 7 p.m. to March 9th at 11:30 p.m. The link will close at 11:30 p.m. the next day. When you start the exam, you'll have 3 hours to complete the exam, and you'll see a clock, a countdown clock in the exam to let you know how much time you have left. Also, the exam works a lot like the homeworks. So if you're familiar with the homework process, you click on the homework link, you do one problem at a time, except you don't get retries on the test. And also on the test, as you complete one problem, you move forward. You're not able to go back to previous problems. The test only moves forwards, not backwards. Okay, so where is the test? It's in My Finance Lab. Look under assignments. It will not show until after 7 p.m. on March 8th. Then the link will appear and you can take the exam. The exam is going to cover all the material in chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you're responsible for the entire chapters of 1, 2, 3, and 4. I try to focus my lectures and the spreadsheet assignments and the homework questions on the majority of the test material, but you are responsible for all 4 of those chapters. So you should review and study those 4 chapters. The test is a makeup of 65 questions. Some of them are multiple choice, and some of them are calculation problems, much like the homework. So here's a hint. I try to pick most of the calculation problems on the exam are similar to the ones you've done for homework. So studying the homeworks would be a good way for studying the exam. Now also remember, a key insight, study for this exam as if it was a closed book exam you're going to take in class. So that way, prepare yourself to the level as if it was an exam where you didn't have the textbook with you and you were taking it in the classroom. If you don't prepare for the exam, you will run out of time while you take the exam as you try to teach yourself everything you should have learned over the last 5 weeks or so. So my biggest hint for you is to study for the exam in advance as if it was an in-class closed book exam. Also, it may be helpful for you to redo, and be familiar with the homework calculation problems because you're likely to see similar ones on the exam. Okay, so those are my 2 big hints for you. A lot of the multiple choice questions, some of them will be computational, but a lot of them will be about the content in the chapters that may not ask about numbers or calculating numbers, but will ask about concepts. So this exam will cover both concepts and calculation problems. Okay, now here are some of the topics on the exam that are going to appear most regularly, more than once in some occasions. Okay, so ratio comparison. So financial ratios from chapter 3, a lot of questions on the financial ratios. The ratio comparisons as a subset, the liability comparison. So we have liability ratios like debt to equity. And we're looking at comparisons between, it could be a time series comparison from one year to the next, or it could be an industry comparison. Okay, describe the legal forms of business. Also the liability comparisons in the legal forms of business. So corporations have a limited liability where single ownership and partnerships have a liability, a limited. So what is the limited liability for? Sole proprietorships is unlimited. For corporations, it's limited. Now, so you should also know the different forms of business organizations from chapter 1, sole proprietorship, partnership, corporation. What are the difference between those 3? Okay, there's a problem from accrual income versus cash flow. This is something that we did in, I believe, chapter 1, and there was a spreadsheet assignment on that. Marginal cost benefit, this was also something that was a problem in the homework and in the spreadsheet from the textbook. Describe how the managerial finance function is related to economics and accounting. So yeah, so this is again a concept question. How is managerial finance, how does it relate to economics and accounting? And again, this is covered in chapters 1 and 2. Identify the primary activities of the financial manager. What does the financial manager do? What are their primary activities? Again, covered in the PowerPoint slides and in a chapter, probably chapter 1, maybe some in chapter 2. What are agency problems? Describe the nature of the principal-agent relationship between the owner and managers of a corporation, and you will be asked, you should know this well enough that you can explain it to somebody. So what is a principal and an agent relationship, and what does that mean between the owners and managers of a corporation? Discuss business taxes and their importance in financial decisions. And of course, there'll be a problem when calculating corporate taxes, much like we had in the homework. In the spreadsheet example, problem: interest versus dividend income. How are they treated in taxes for corporations? How are capital gains taxes calculated for corporations? Review the contents of the stockholders report and the procedures for consolidating international financial statements. So when a business has international operations, how do they consolidate their financial statement? How is that accomplished? What are some basic rules of that? A problem: preparing an income statement. So there'll be a problem on preparing an income statement. There'll be a problem of preparing a balance sheet. Okay. Now moving to chapter 3, use ratios to analyze a firm's liquidity and activity. So what ratios measure liquidity, what ratios measure activity, and how do you use these ratios to analyze a company? Use ratios to analyze a firm's profitability and its market value. So when you see these bullet points, use ratios, it's basically going to be questions based on the financial ratios that we went over in chapter 3 and how they can be used to analyze the firm's position and profitability. Discuss the relationship between debt and financial leverage and the ratios used to analyze a firm's debt. So again, here we're looking at ratios specifically tied to a firm's debt and ratios that are looking at the debt levels and the financial leverage of a company. Understand tax depreciation procedures and the effect of depreciation on the firm's cash flow. So you should understand what depreciation is and how depreciation affects cash flow. Also how depreciation affects net income. So there will be a problem in calculating depreciation. Discuss the firm's statements of cash flow, operating cash flow, and free cash flow. So this is from chapter 4, and you want to look at what is a statement of cash flow, how do you calculate operating cash flow, and how do you calculate free cash flow. Problem: there'll be a problem in calculating operating cash flow and free cash flow. Much like the homework. Okay, discuss the cash planning process and preparation. So what is a cash planning process and how do you prepare for it? Evaluation and the use of the cash budget. So here we're going to, this is again from chapter 4, looking at cash planning, and there'll be questions on the cash budget, cash receipts, and cash disbursements. Explain the simplified procedures used in preparing and evaluating the pro forma income statement and the pro forma balance sheet. So again, what are pro forma financial statements, and what are some procedures to prepare and evaluate pro forma income statements and pro forma balance sheets? Again, from chapter 4. There will be a problem of calculating cash receipts, much like the homework. There will be a problem in calculating cash disbursements, much like the homework and the spreadsheet problem for chapter 4. And finally, also calculating a cash budget, much like the homework for chapter 4 and the spreadsheet from chapter 4. And also a problem on calculating the pro forma income statement, again, like the spreadsheet for chapter 4 and the homework. Okay, describe the goal of the firm and explain why maximizing the value of the firm is an appropriate goal for business. So what is the goal of the firm? What is the firm trying to do? And why maximizing the value of the firm is an appropriate goal for business. So discuss what is the ultimate goal for business and how can they maximize value? Describe the difference between capital markets and money markets. Understand who uses financial ratios and how they use them. Understand the financial planning process, including long-term strategic financial plans and short-term operating plans. Evaluate the simplified approach to pro forma financial statement preparation and common uses for the pro forma financial statements. Okay, so a lot of this material all this material is covered in chapters 1 through 4. Some of this material is reinforced in the Zoom simulation, like pro forma income statements, pro forma balance sheets, financial ratios, things of that nature, cash flow. So these are what I have written down here in this test review. These are the main topics the test is going to focus on. It's not 100% of the topics, so please don't come back and say, Professor Nugent, this question wasn't among your topics that you listed in your test review, so I want my points back. Well, I'm here to tell you right now, I tried to put together what's the majority focus or 90% focus of what's on the exam. This may not include everything that's on the exam, but this is what I feel you should really look at and study the closest to get. And these topics will cover at least 90 to 95% of the questions on the exam, but not everything. So you still need to go into the textbook, and review those chapters. Okay, so let's review the test review. The test is it's going to start for the online class on March 8th at 7 p.m. and it will finish up on March 9th at 11:30 p.m. and a 3-hour time limit. You won't get your results for your test until after 3/9 and probably 3/10, which I have the time to review the test results and any questions in the test that the majority of the class gets wrong. I'm going to look at to see if there's a problem, an error. There could be an error in the question. The question could be wrong or misleading, and I will return those points back to you. So I need a little time to analyze the results to make sure the test is fair and balanced. You will have a 3-hour time limit. You'll find this in My Finance Lab, and it's going to cover chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you should definitely reread, or for some of you, read for the first time, chapters 1, 2, and 3, and 4 to get an idea of all the material in those chapters. Because in addition to reading the chapters, you should also redo or revisit the homework for chapters 1 through 4, because a lot of the problems on the exam are based on the homework questions. But not every problem on the exam is from the homework questions. There are 65 questions in total. Generally, the problem questions are worth more points than the multiple choice questions, and there's a possibility for true and false questions to pop up in there as well. The test is pretty well balanced, so probably a third of the test will be computational problems and 2/3 of the test will be multiple choice true-false types of problems. And below, these are, I spelled out and explained before, these are the main subjects and topics that the test will cover from those 4 chapters. So this is the area that you definitely should look at, and I've actually took the time out to show you what problems will be on the tests based on this area, so you have an idea to study and review those problems. And here's another hint. You may want to have Excel ready, and you may want to have Excel prepped with some simple templates to calculate some of the homework problems. So if you see a homework problem that you might want to calculate or set up Excel to easily calculate that problem. So if you encounter a similar problem on a test, you can easily calculate it. Same thing for the financial ratios. We've had spreadsheets where you've calculated this, so you may want to utilize spreadsheets to help you calculate the problems faster rather than doing them by hand on a calculator at the time of the exam, because part of this exam is also your time efficiency. So if you're going to teach yourself everything and read the chapter for the first time and see these questions and problems for the first time, you'll need about 6 hours to take this exam. But if you study and you prepare and you're ready for the exam, you're familiar with the content, you should be able to complete the exam under 2 hours. So I'm giving an extra hour just in case. All right, so that is my quick 15-minute review for exam 1. And I wanted to get this to you a week early because the exam is next week, so you should start studying now and preparing for the exam. Good luck, and I'll talk to you soon.